So today we're going to be continuing to take a look at a scenario where civilization starts over. We are now on episode 68 of the series. In the previous episode, we saw a lot of fighting in World War IV, so if you haven't seen the previous episode, I very severely apologize to you. But if you haven't seen it, go watch it. Quick, go back, don't look at this map, go watch it. And if you guys do enjoy today's video, make sure to leave a like on it and subscribe to the channel if you're new. All the support is greatly appreciated as we're trying to get the 200,000 subscribers by the end of this summer. The new Discord server has officially launched, link to that in the description. It is a fan server. I'm hoping that it's going to be a lot better than the current server that we have, or the previous server that we had. So if you're interested in further interacting with the community, make sure to check out the new Discord server in the link in the description. Without further ado, let's go ahead and jump straight into today's scenario. The final event of the previous episode was the rebellion of the Lime team, an old nation, but a once great nation at that. But remember, this thing didn't originate in India. It also originated in Persia. The Persian country also has the uprising of the Lime team occur within it. This is a non-aligned neutral nation now drawn into World War IV, and Lime team forces will very quickly advance throughout this country and start to seize much of its countryside in major cities. Much like India, the Persian country tried to suppress nationalism as much as it could in an attempt to avert any kind of radicalization. If you didn't give people a sense of unity, if you didn't give people a sense of pride in a nation, then there's less likely of a chance of radical ideology like communism or fascism winning in an election or winning in a rebellion, etc. But as it turns out, when you suppress nationality a little too hard, it tends to come back and bite you. There was a very strong underground movement to reestablish the Lime team. People of these regions know the stories of the once great Lime team empire. They know the dominance that it had, they know the influence that it had, and they're disappointed with the lack thereof that India has shown. So with help from a foreign agent, they have done this. And that foreign agent is a top 6 power in the world. Who is it? I'll let you guys figure that out for yourselves. But with the reappearance of the Lime team and rebellion form, India is forced to repool all of their troops to the homeland in order to defend the major area right here. This is their major urban area. This is the most economically prosperous area in the world. At least it is currently. This used to be really good, but it's a little bit divided up right now. But the event that has happened in India will depress the whole world. More specifically, the communist and democratic nations across the planet. As a Lime team rebellion in this modern day would most likely have fascist roots. The gold team rejoices, West Africa rejoices, the brown team rejoices, Brazil rejoices. The fascists overall have an insane morale boost. The communists, meanwhile, lose all hope. What they once believed to be a quick military operation to topple the evil regime of the brown team has quickly turned south. Their forces begin to be pushed back, Norway loses control of both major cities, and the communist Russians begin to experience great loss as the fascists start to sweep through their country. With all hope lost in this Russian country, they will surrender over to their fascist counterparts. And with pink team forces now swarming in, we have the yellow country doing much of the same, surrendering over to the fascist front. The pink team and the green team make an agreement. The green team will occupy and eventually annex northern Russia, and the pink team will occupy and eventually annex southern Russia. But now taking an updated look at our alliance map in Europe, we can see that the square team has now become severely outnumbered. At this point, even more democratic nations begin to issue states of emergencies as a fascist victory is imminent. Down south in Africa, we have Tanzania declaring war on the gold team. This is a declaration backed by pure anger and frustration, but the Tanzanians know that all hope has been lost. Their only goal at this point is to destroy as much of the gold team as humanly possible. The genocide that has been committed against their people will no longer go without vain. The Tanzanians begin to commit mass war crimes across the gold team, and after a few weeks of invading and fighting, the gold team will very quickly clap back at Tanzania, kicking back their invading forces and entering into the country. The gold team's military operation in Tanzania is a very swift and violent one. Their capital city is captured, and the atrocities committed in Tanzania are unlike any ever seen before. The gold team's military leaves no survivors, not even civilians. Upon reaching southern Africa, they capture one of the last remaining cities, but taking a look at the religion map, we see levels of purging not seen before. The gold team's weapon has finished its development and it is completed. Northern Tanzania is completely cleansed. The world sees the atrocities committed in Tanzania. No one will ever forget this. A genocide comparable to the atrocities committed by Germany in World War II. The world is sick to their stomach. Soon, satellite images spread across the internet, and enough is enough. The world will finally fight back against fascism. Hope has been restored. South Africa and their fellow allies declare war on the Parallelogram Alliance in the name of freeing Africa and restoring a once great continent. But it isn't just South Africa's military alliance that gets involved in this war. All democratic nations remaining in Africa decide to join the cause. Enough is enough. Madagascar joins, Purple Team joins, the Yellow Team, the Dark Blue Team, the Peach Team. Everyone is united in this cause. Fueled by anger and rage seen from the genocide, the Trapezoid Alliance will very swiftly start to push back against the Gold Team, reclaiming the capital of Tanzania. As they continue to reclaim lost land, the horrors continue to unfold. Eventually, it is determined what the secret weapon that the Gold Team has developed is: biological and chemical weapons. Mass graves are discovered, with the effects of chemical weapons very prominent on the bodies within. Atrocities. This shakes the entire world, and I mean the entire world. While the governments may bat an eye to it, the people certainly will not. The Dark Cyan Team begins to rumble. From within, their population begins to mobilize against their government, and a march on their capital city is accomplished. Hundreds of thousands of people storm the government, and their leader is dragged out from the building, pulled down the street, and hung in the town square. The fascist government of the Dark Cyan Team is overthrown, and a civilian government comes into power. The military is the one that helped carry out this coup. All invading forces are recalled back to the main area of the Dark Cyan Team, where they are then informed that instead of heading northeast, they will now be marching west. The Dark Cyan Team begins their invasion of West Africa, taking a major city and reclaiming land that was once rightfully theirs. The Dark Cyan Team officially leaves the Parallelogram Alliance and joins the Square Team. This betrayal by the Dark Cyan Team does not go well with that of the Gold Team, who will inform their allies to carry out major bombing runs across this country, targeting civilian areas such as hospitals, schools, churches, and much more. The allies of the Gold Team will refuse. The Orange Team leaves the Parallelogram Alliance. This country leaves the Parallelogram Alliance. The Gold Team begins to lose its influence. But the chances of a fascist victory are still prominent, especially with the forces of the Brown Team being as successful as they have been. With the Dark Cyan Team switching sides and officially joining the side of the Romans, we have their military being very alleviated. They're able to recapture lost lands from the Brown Team over here, and restart their invasion into areas which they had previously invaded from the Brown Team. Back over in the Lime Team, we have their rebellion forces being largely successful against the Blue Persian country as they move around and take more and more major cities. Eventually their capital is threatened, but luckily for them, India has started to invade these rebellion forces, recapturing one of their lost major cities, as they begin to even liberate some of their lost land that had been previously invaded by the rebellion. Eventually, India is able to establish itself a legitimate front line to fight back against the Lime Team rebellion, but it's unknown if they'll be able to reach the Persians in time, who are dealing with a majority of the Lime Team's forces. Back down in Africa, we have the Gold Team being continued to be pushed out of Tanzania. Eventually, Lake Victoria is reached, but at this time, the Gold Team has started to already invade into the new African nations. The Red Team is the first of their targets. The Gold Team military will quickly move into this area and capture their capital city, all the while sending reinforcements down south to deal with the ever-growing South African front. Back in Europe, the Brown Team is able to push back all of Norway's invading forces after logistical failures, and from here, the Brown Team starts a specific military campaign aimed at getting Norway out of the way. What they plan to do is invade into Denmark, and that is exactly what they do, and they do so very efficiently. Some of this land used to belong to the Brown Team. In fact, I'm pretty sure they're the ones that settled this area, so there are some points where they're met with open arms by the residents living here. Although that was a long time ago, that sense of unity is still existing. A majority of the Danish peninsula is now under Brown Team control, once again due to Norway's logistical failures. The Brown Team also starts to invade into the Farmers Union now, taking another major city. Despite the South Africans joining this war, it still doesn't look too good for the communists. Remember, the main portion of the fighting is happening in Europe. This is where World War IV began. Africa is just kind of like a side character who is involved. They're helping out their respective sides, more so the fascists helping out the actual other fascists. This will serve as yet another distraction for the Gold Team. First it was India, now it's South Africa. Now fighting South Africa is going to be a lot more difficult than fighting India because India is separated by an ocean, whereas this is actually connected to you. So a few other fascist nations up north that are in the Parallelogram Alliance will start to send some support down to the Gold Team in hopes of helping them out and fighting back. Morale for the communist and democratic nations across the world are still incredibly low. Back over in Persia, we have the Lime Team meeting up with the ocean. Now being connected with the Persian Gulf, they're able to sweep through this southern area and start to get towards the capital city. India has ran out of time. Persia will soon fall. Not only has India ran out of time, but they have began to struggle against the Lime team. At first, they were able to make applicable gains, but as of recently, those gains have slowed down. There's a much larger problem at hand, and it's not that they're fighting rebels, but they're essentially fighting their own population, the same population they technically suppressed in the name of preserving their democracy and fighting back against radicalization. The morale of the Indian army is destroyed. So India is going to cut a deal with another nation. One nation that hasn't surfaced on this map in a very long time. A nation that is ancient and a nation that is rich in history. In fact, some would call it the nation. Maybe the first nation, depending on who you ask. But India will release the Red Team. A deal is cut between the Indian government and the Red Team's government, in which India agrees to give up all of their claims that they have on the Red Team in exchange for the Red Team helping out India. Before, the puppet government that they had set up in the Red Team was hesitant to help out India. Why would they? You know, you're occupying us. Why should we help you out in your little civil war? Well, now they have a reason to. They're promised independence as long as India is able to beat back the Lime Team. But what India didn't know would happen is that this decision would start to snowball. The Brown Team loses control over its claim on the Red Team as it rebels. The puppet government is overthrown, and a few days later, the same thing happens in Norway. Eventually, China has no other choice but to officially give independence to their claim on the Red Team, and the nation is once again sovereign. The Red Team has returned, finally, after their defeat in World War III as the Old Empire. And as promised, the Red Team will be pledging support to India and Persia in the name of defeating the Lime Team. A few days later, we have the official entrance of India into the Square Team, followed shortly by the Red Team's return to the Alliance. But despite their deal to help out India, the Red Team remains silent. No troops were moved, and there is no communication between the Red Team and India. Thinking that the Red Team is simply just setting up its government and, getting its military ready to help out, India doesn't think too much about it. But now heading back to Europe. The Dark Science Team invasion of West Africa was a very brave one, but at the end of the day, they're no match. West African troops begin to pour into the Dark Science Team, and their capital city is captured, but they don't stop fighting. The Dark Science Team enters in a total war, the first country to do so. In the east, we have the Blue Team starting to re-invade into the Farmers Union, capturing two major cities, and starting to threaten the existence of this country as invading forces begin to invade from three sides. The Brown Team from the west and the north, and then of course the Blue Team from the east. The attempt that this country had to reclaim Poland ended up in failure, and now the consequences are beginning to show as Brown Team troops begin to pour in. This is the next stage of the Brown Team's plan. Take out the Farmers Union. But the Brown Team doesn't really plan to do this all on their own. They plan to kind of leave it to the Russians. Because, of course, the Brown Team has to fight against the Purple Team, they have to fight against Norway. That's way too many fronts for them to fight. So instead of focusing on this, the Brown Team will now shift its focus to purely dealing with the Purple Team, their main rival and greatest enemy. World War IV is starting to reach its climax. Meanwhile, Norway will recuperate and attempt to reinvade Denmark, but it will take a lot of planning after their failures in the previous campaign. In Africa, we have the Gold Team completely occupying the Red Team and starting to do their atrocities once more, before once again starting to seep out into these other nations, now invading into the Purple Lavender country. Over the course of the next few weeks, the fascists will continue to win this war as the communists become more and more hopeless. Like I've said previously, the fascists are a very united front. Across the world, they have great foreign relations with each other, which is something the communists struggle with, and that is why we haven't seen a united communist front pop up yet. There's a ton of communist nations in South America, yet none of them have acted against the fascists on their continent. There's a communist Australia, but they haven't done anything, so that is why we're seeing no hope. But then a few years into this war, a miraculous event occurs. And this takes place in the birthplace of all civilization. In the Middle Eastern region, a new front opens. The Red Team and the Blue Team reunite to form the Old Empire. Not only the Red and Blue teams though, the Lime Team quickly joins, followed by the Brown Team, the Gray Team, the Pink Team, the Orange Team, the Blue Team, finally finished off by the Teal Team. The Forbidden Union, bounded by the treaties of World War III, has been completely resurrected. The world at this point is speechless. The Old Empire isn't allowed to exist, yet it stands right here in the middle of a catastrophe. In a world divided by radical ideologies, the sole key that prevented this from happening at an earlier time has just turned the lock of hope for the democracies around the world. The leader of the new Old Empire presents themselves in front of a crowd in the capital city. Hundreds of thousands of people gather to celebrate the rebirth of an empire. And the leader of this new union is none other than the descendant of the true royal blood. She is the descendant of the leader of the former pink country up here, the true successor of the red team. Previously, the royal family and many other of the government officials of the old empire fled to Cyprus before things got dicey for the former old empire. In Cyprus, they recuperated and started to make plans. They contacted the leader of the blue team and began to formulate something. Seeing that the world was turning to hell and that radical ideologies began to take countries by storm, they knew that a war like this was coming, and they knew that it would be a very violent one. Without an old empire, these regional countries got ahead of themselves. The gold team, they got ahead of themselves. They committed genocide. The green team, they got ahead of themselves. They committed genocide. The purple team began invading its neighbors. The Dutch Empire began undermining other countries and eventually did much of the same, and the atrocities followed. Eventually, once the tensions in the world began to rise right before World War IV, the plan to reform the old empire was created, and all the nations which have joined it were in agreement to reform this thing. Nobody knew this was coming other than these countries themselves, but now almost restored to its former glory and finding itself back in the Square Team Alliance, the old empire will begin to fight on the side of freedom. They will fight against the evil ideology of fascism, kicking the gold team out of Arabia. Following this, old empire troops will begin to invade these two fascist nations over here before entering gold team territory and kicking them right out of Arabia. The secretness surrounding the reforming of this empire was for a good reason. People were scared to say the words old empire. World War III was extremely harsh on this thing. Nobody wanted this thing to exist anymore. It was powerful and it controlled the world. So the people, even though they supported it and even though they wanted it back, kept their mouths shut, and so did the governments. A lot of planning and coordination went into this thing, and without it, it wouldn't be able to function as it is. But luckily, these nations are already all familiar with each other, so organization of military forces and economical factors wasn't too hard to reestablish within a few weeks. Once the Lime team officially capitulates the remainder of Persia, it's on. Old Empire versus Lime team. But not only Old Empire versus Lime team, Old Empire versus Gold Team. A few days later, it is reported that the leader of Libya is deceased. He died of a heart attack upon hearing the news of the Old Empire's return. All of a sudden, the communists in the Square Team Alliance gets their hope back. Soon, other nations will begin to join the Old Empire. We have Palestine joining, we have the Caucasian country joining, and now reunited under its former glory, the Old Empire will begin to invade the Lime team, aiming to free Persia of its clutches. The Indian military regains all of its morale, and the pushback against the Lime team begins, and this time it is very successful. With a newfound hope in Mesopotamia against the fascist front, we have the unification of a new front, the Communist Front. The communist nations of South America will all join the Square Team Alliance. Global war has now made its way to this continent. The only nation that refrains from joining is Central America, but the good news is that Blue Australia has finally woken up and chosen a side. World War IV has now reached its peak. Thank you guys for watching this video. If you guys did enjoy it, make sure to leave a like on it and subscribe to the channel if you're new. All the support is greatly appreciated once again as we're trying to get to 200,000 subscribers. And I will see you all in the next video. And of course, thank you to all our super fans. This includes Serminator, IC Static FN, CTG on YT, Ixco, Euroball, Augusto, A Norwegian, RS, Gail Martinez, America and Canada and UK, Zaylance, the leader of the AZO, Freezioi, Laser Taze, Pablo Sigma Cat, Death Strider X, Hammer Toad 45, and of course, DW Cool Dude. Once again, thank you guys.